we go. Buckle it up. Hello, Heroes Bench Collectibles. You're back. Rodolfo, I see you made it. Thank you. We got some usuals in here. Mr. Sanson, Morpheus, Jim. We'll see if John makes it. John always comes through sometimes to say hello to us all. So as you guys can all, Matthew, what's going on? Thanks for coming. Good morning, Nathan. How early is it for you? Where are you? If it's, well, it is morning, I guess, though. I forget that it is 11 here, right? So I want to continue this project because I started this last week, and then many of you asked, hey, can we continue seeing how you would go the next stage and the next stage and the next stage, right? And then I said I would block a little bit more out from the last stream, so I did. I finished up the back end tail a little bit, right? And again, this is just my workflow that I like to work with. It's going great. Thanks, Morph. How are you? Ben, it's been a while, I think. Nice to see you. Oscar, thanks for coming in. So I want to now go to, okay, these are very rough shapes, right? So I want to, for this stream, talk about a couple techniques that we can use to clean up some of these pieces, and then make sure you can really wrap your head around them. And it comes down to, like, you can, in essence, take what I'm doing here, really, and not make them so rough. Like, I've got them pretty rough. Like, none of these shit, like, especially this one, is really rough. But I prefer working this way just so I can make sure I'm getting my proportions down. And then number two, a thing I like to call is size. Like, and what I mean by that, like, proportions is definitely something organically makes a lot more sense than sometimes hard surface. So, in essence, proportions and size is relatively the same. Where I switch gears to where I talk about size is this is a dropship, right? So this is so big. If it was in real life, right, it holds the military soldiers, right? So there's only so much room to hold them, and then it holds the one car that's in the movie, right? That's it. So when I get to size stuff, I'm talking about when we start looking at little details, like all the scribe lines and things like that, that stuff gives a volume or to a mesh, especially to when you guys are done with something and you're throwing up on whatever way you want to share your work. The viewer needs to understand, oh, this thing's actually really big, or, you know, this is kind of small. So there's sometimes things that you can do to help push that story along, and that's where I like to mean size. Where proportions is just proportions, right? Is what is the size of this, right, compared to everything else, and making sure all that's right. That's another reason why I like to work this way with this, is because I'm not sure. And again, for hard surface, we don't have the luxury of just anything, grab anything, and we're good to go, right? It doesn't not work that way for hard surface. All right. So this is what I've blocked out. This is my drop ship. This is the block out that I have for myself that's getting me. And again, I probably need to find some more images to really make sure I am figuring this out. Because I would even say this piece right here needs a little bit more tapering. Right, so this is, and someone asked me, why don't you just use ZModeler right out the gate? I don't, because, not for everything. Some things I would use ZModeler for. I don't, because there's just so many times the shapes have to really change a lot, and I don't want it to be dependent upon topology. That is one of the main reasons why I don't use ZModeler for my blockouts. And again, like we were talking, I tend to move as quick as I can in this stage. I'm not spending a lot of time in this stage. Right, I would say there, that one's a little bit more in that world now. And then, so you see like this part, this is sticking out, right? So then I'm going to mask that off. And then so I just can be clipped way down to like that, right? So this is like a secondary pass now that I start to do. I start looking at this, looking at my references, and making sure that I got enough volume there, right? I would say this is off. Right, if I start looking at the volume in here, in this space, right, so I'm talking about right here, right, look at this, and these do this kind of a thing, right, in the ship itself. Okay. John, you made it. Nice. Okay, so this is a secondary pass now I like to do. And then I want to be quick and as free as I can. So this is definitely not working. So I want to probably mask this off. Okay, and then this is where I will tend now to use my deformer. It's just going to be easy for me to say, okay, this needs to come up more. I need a little bit more volume between here and here, right? So I'm going to be more in there. And then I want to go now also this way just a little bit more. Just something more like that in that range. Okay, and I think I've got it tapering. I think a little too much here, right? So this is why I like to do this next pass now. So again, I'm going to just use a deformer. It's a quick, nice way to readjust things. I got a little too much taper in there, right? And I'm looking around at all my images right now just to see. And then I'm a big fan of this. And then I would say I've got too much tapering in here as well. Okay, in this part right here. Right, so I'd want to probably fix that as well. So I'm going to say, here's now, when you're using this deformer, right? I want to add a couple more points of interest here, because really the only part I want to start moving is in essence this corner quadrant right here, right? So I need more points of interest. So because I've already been using the deformer, okay, I don't want to now just add points, okay? Because then what that's going to do is Space Cookie, that's a good name, number one. I like it. And number two, yes, this is the Aliens Dropship. So I'm just showing everybody how I would approach something like this. And like my first stream was blocking this all out. And this stream, we're going to start refining some of the pieces. I'm going to show different features to show that. Okay, so back to this. The reason why I'm bringing this up, I don't want to now click on any one of these orange cones, because then what's going to happen is, in essence, it's resetting the deformer, which then it's going to reset your mesh. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my gear, and I'm going to accept the changes that I've done so far with this particular deformer. Okay, and then now make a new deformer. And then now I want to make, like I said, I want to go there and there. So in essence, this. See, I wanted this little quadrant in here. Okay. Uh-oh, John. Those kids. Those kids. Hey, Daniel. Welcome. Yes. Yes. We are doing the little alien dropship. Okay. So you can go this route, right? And then that way, see, I can do stuff like this. Right? But looking at like some of these images, this little angle that I put here doesn't really make much sense at all to what this is supposed to look like, right? If anything, this should have more of an angle this way, right? So this should come across, right, like this, more than anything, more like that kind of world happening, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, because I just don't even know where I put this, and this is, again, kind of sometimes why I like to work this way. I'm going to use the Move Infinite Depth for this. And, again, because I'm so rough, I'm just going to quickly put this back to somewhat of a shape that I want. Perfecto. I'll re-Dynamesh. Okay, and then see, now I'm back to this. And now I'm back, I can have my clip brushes back again. And then again, like I just noticed, right? This needs to have a little bit of an angle here, right? So these missile, right, the bays that pop open, right, need to have that, because this bluish one is this part, right? And now I need this to be a little more aggressive. So it needs to be a little bit more, I would say a little bit more in that realm, okay? And then now you can see the yellow piece, again, is being just pesky, pesky, pesky. So I'm just going to really chop that down, right? Something there, more in that right? And then we're going to also, like this, also needs a little bit of that in there, right? And then this is what I mean by the second pass. I'm now starting to put a little bit more of the planing in. so I can make sure I've got this where I want it. And I'm pretty happy with this. This is definitely needs a little more volume for sure, right? Just looking at here and looking in here, there definitely needs to be some more volume in there. And I'd say this is a great image for this piece, showing how much it actually does taper. But I think some of that is also this particular part right here needs a lot more volume to it. I would say it needs something more in that range. Something more around in there, in that world. Right? And then this piece here, I'm going to just tweak this a little bit. Keep that consistent there. All right. And then I'm going to actually tweak that even more a little bit. Let's get both of those pieces to be matching angle through here. Whoops, might help if I held the Alt key. So I'm clipping, and if I hold the Alt key, right, then I can clip out, right, and then just keep going, right? So this is, I want to live a little bit more in that realm. So then this is even going to taper. This piece is going to even taper just a little bit more. So let's use the clip curve, and let's add a little bit more taper to this. A little bit more taper. Yeah, there we go. That's getting a little bit better. Okay, and then from the side, I would say now this needs now also a little bit more length. So I'm going to turn off my symmetry. We'll deformer this one again, and I'm going to give this a little bit more length. It's just a touch. It's a little too much there. Okay. And then there you go. And then this, I'm just going to, this little part right here, I'm just going to quickly just get rid of that. And then there you go. Okay. So let's start looking at now. Okay, I've got a pretty good block out, right? I start getting this, I would say I could go out this forever, right? So it's really about getting that shape as much as you can right out the gate. It's just going to make it easier for when we move in this next stage that I like to call stage 2. So I'm in stage 1 right now, right, where I'm just trying to make sure all these shapes are working together based upon what I'm making here, which is a very recognizable aliens dropship. Okay? So this is now, let's look at, okay, what kind of things can we use now to get these shapes to be a little bit more of what they should look like, okay? So I'm going to show you guys a couple techniques here, okay? So hold on, I'm just catching up with your questions. Yes, the first stream of this is available. So the first stream is just me pretty much blocking out this whole thing from scratch. I showed how I brought in images, like literally blueprints. This was inspired because I bought the Aliens Blueprint book, and it inspired me. Okay, so the first stream is available. If you go to our YouTube channel, it's there. I don't think it's on Twitch. It's on our YouTube channel, though, but it's not on Twitch. Okay, so you can go to that. If someone's available that maybe can find it for him, that'd be great. All right, so let's start with a simple one. Oh, thanks, Dice K. You're in here. Awesome. Okay, so let's start with a simple one. Let's start with these intake air, right? Because that's what this is, right? And I think when you guys design, especially when you start trying to design your own ships and things like that, I would definitely, okay, think about stuff like this, right? That'll help you push your design somewhere. Like, even if it's a sci-fi ship, it still has to have rules of airflow and aviation, okay? So think about that stuff, okay? So this is an air flow intake, right? And then it's got an outtake, right? Same thing for this. This is here as part of a flow of air, right, for the engine and everything, okay? So they take stuff that exists in real life, and then they just adapt and make something cool sci-fi looking. All right, so let's start with that. So the first one that I want to talk about is just using straight up ZModeler, okay, for a couple of these pieces. So then this is the point where I start splitting off. As you can see right now, when I turn on polyframe, everything is, everything is low polygon Dynamesh and all one subtool for the most part. The only thing that's not is this back wing part and then this part here. And now that I'm looking at this image, this pink thing, I gotta go tweak this. This isn't working for me, this pink one. I'm going to tweak this. So and again, I'm gonna center my gizmo. I'm gonna reset it by holding the Alt key, which you guys can see all my keys in the bottom left corner there. And I'm gonna deformer it. And again, because I have this red comb pulled out all the way, I've got symmetry ability. Okay, and what I want to do, this definitely needs more volume. So I want these shapes to have a little bit more volume to them. Come out a little bit more, like this. And then I would say the top part, I'm going to put that down just a, yeah, a little bit more. Actually, we're going to go up. Give myself a little bit more space in there. Again, I'm going to accept that. And then now I want to do another deformer. And this time I want to do a little bit more refinement, tweaking. So I'm going to go more points here. And then I want to put, so I'm holding control. And those white dots are everything that can be moved. And now I'm holding the Alt key. I use this all the time. So whatever's in the white box stays unmasked, and all the other white points get masked, because this needs to have a little bit of this happening to it. Right? Just a little bit more, something like that. And then now I'm going to use, again, this infinite brush depth, right? To have that symmetry on. And I'm just going to, let's make sure I got everything masked off that I want masked off. And let's just tweak this a little bit more. See, I find if you spend a little bit more time in here, right, then when we get into next, it's all going to make things a little bit better. Yeah, there. That's working better for me. Okay, so back to this. So this is where I'm going to start splitting off, okay? So I'm going to click on this, and you can see this thing is just ridiculous right now, right? I just been chopping up, and slicing. Like, this is clearly not what this piece looks like, right? This part doesn't exist in all actuality, right? So it's not really going to matter to me, though. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I've got this foldered off already, right, from the previous building of this. So I like to use folders a lot, okay? I'm just a fan of it. It helps me keep organized, and it all move things around. It helps me with a lot of things. So I'm going to go ahead and now just split hidden this, okay? All right, and then now I've got this, and then the ship is its own subtool, right? So this definitely needs to be tweaked. So let's just cut off, like, we don't need all of that, and get rid of that, okay? And now what I want to do in essence is, I know that this is the right size now, right? I know I've got the angle that I want for this, right? So I don't have to sit here and guess now, in essence, for rebuilding, right? This is the point of me going through and doing things. I would even say I probably need this to be a little bit bigger, right? Something more like that. And I probably, me being me, I'm going to do a little bit something more like that. I'm going to say, yeah, something a little bit more like that. See, I can just tweak these shapes just a little bit, right? And then, so in essence, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use this as my reference. So instead of just an image, I'm using a 3D reference where I'm getting every angle, and now I just want to quickly rebuild it. So here's one way I can do this, and it's just using ZModeler. So especially something as simple as this to rebuild this, okay? So I'm going to just duplicate this, right? Let's rename this. Let's rename this front intake concept for now. Okay, and let's now rename this front intake. Okay, because I'm going to end up deleting this one is what's going to happen here. All right, now I've got a duplication of this. Let's just only focus on this right now. So I'm just going to turn everything else off that I really don't need because I want to focus on this for us, okay? And I'm going to say, let's replace this. Let's get rid of it. So I love using the gizmo for this, okay? I'm a big fan of this. So once again, I'm going to turn symmetry off, okay? And then center this, okay? And what's going to happen now is I have two versions of this. If I click this gear and say, no, give me a cube, right? You'll see now I get a cube, right? But then I still have the original concept piece. Okay, and you'll see wherever my gizmo is, that's where this is going to go. Okay, so if you wanted to, as a user, you can mask off this side, right? And then I would say, okay, gizmo, center now. So now the gizmo is being recentered based upon masking. So then this gizmo is sitting already where I kind of want this piece to be on the ship, as is, right? So then the difference here now, okay, is this is sitting here. So I'm going to clear my mask now. And then now when I click this cube, you'll see where the cube now is. So you can see the difference between this. This is not a necessary thing, but it's something that might be beneficial for you guys, especially when you guys are doing stuff maybe that isn't perfectly aligned like this. You might want to use that gizmo's positioning for replacing meshes, right? Let's say this thing actually had more like an angle like this, right? Right. So this now I can have the gizmo follow that angle. So even if my gizmo was all over the place right now, like it is right now, okay, right? It's just not aligned. I can actually hold the Alt key, right, and then tap on a point, right, and then it moves. And then I can hold the Alt key and see I can align this gizmo along this line. Okay, and what becomes important is that blue arrow. That blue arrow becomes important for the pieces. So I'm going to also hold the Alt key and the Shift key and to make the blue arrow be the one that's along that line. So then when I go and click this cube, you can see that cube is along the line, and where that cube is sitting is where the gizmo was. Okay, so this is why I'm saying this kind of stuff. It's not necessary, but it helps. You can see how this can help me not have to reposition because the cube's already in the right spot. And now I'm going to get rid of every single edge loop. So now the only thing I have here, I'll make this a little bit bigger, okay, is a cube with 6 sides. Since I'm using ZModeler now, I want to keep this as low polygon as I can, okay, because I want to now start manipulating this a little bit easier. And again, this can go back to, we had a couple people last stream asking, why don't you just start with ZModeler? For some pieces, I would. Like something like this, I probably would have just done ZModeler in a lot of cases, okay? But again, when you're using ZModeler, you are, okay, refrained to that shape, right? Okay, so the geometry is controlling everything for you, in essence, right? And when I'm concepting or designing, it's just like when you guys think about it as when you are sketching on a piece of paper, right? You don't sit there and try and put all the details in. You're sketching. So that's kind of what I'm doing in 3D. Okay, enough of me talking. So now what I do is I like to throw on some transparency. You can do either ghost or not ghost. Okay, so down here, let's see. Yeah, you guys can see it. I'm down here by my wonderful face right now. I'm down here. Okay, so I like to do no ghost. And now all this is now let me just match this simple cube to this shape now. Yeah, I know she made an appearance. The daughter made an appearance. She's in here with me. Unfortunately, she has to be in here with me. All right, so we're going to I'm going to get that volume, and then I'm going to get that volume. And again, I am moving this with the gizmo, but people, I'm using that technique again, where I'm holding the Alt key in the white box, and then doing this. Right? Hey, Mr. Mars. I need to come up with a better name. You guys got good names. Okay, and then now I need to go to the front, and let's just refine that shape. And this is what I mean by I'm not guessing now. Because I took guessing in the beginning sketching phase of Dynameshing. That's why I like to call it Dynasketching. That helps me get through that. Okay? And so now I'm like, okay, I've got now the volume. In essence, I got a bounding box here, right? And then now this is where I start adding some edge looping now, right? So then I'm going to, again, and I'm going to pull this down to here. I'm going to live right about in there, okay? And I definitely need now to switch to ZModeler. We need an edge loop in here. And let's now refine that and pull that up. And then now I can get this taper a little bit better, okay? So that's one, okay? And then now I need definitely an edge loop right here. And you can see what I'm doing right now becomes important. So you see how this edge loop I'm adding is changing, right? I'm going from a perfectly straight line to one that's not a straight line. Okay, so I think it's really important to understand this, all right? So where you click, excuse me, where you click on this edge or this edge, whatever one of these three along this line here becomes important, right? So there's clearly a halfway point in all these edges. There's somewhere where you're at the halfway point when you're clicking on it. Okay, so now if I want to click closer to this bottom loop here, okay, I can make the edge be perfectly straight. And in all honesty, this is what I would want. I like to keep my edge loops as straight as I can for whatever I can, because it makes things easier down the pipe for me, 100%. Okay. So Solomon is no longer with us at Pixologic, so you know, right? So this is important. So what I'm doing is constraining the edge loop. Okay. So if I hold the shift key, now you can see I can move this, and it's always, no matter what, it's nice and straight. Okay. If I get closer to this profile, right, you can see it takes more on that profile. And if I get closer, it takes the straight. But now if I hold the shift key, you can see it takes on that profile. Okay. And this kind of stuff, okay, is going to be important, right? So then this, I want probably a straight point of interest there. Okay. And then now, do I now just do this, right, to get this shape a little more refined and a little bit more like that, right? And then now that gives me that piece right out the gate. Now, this, I think I'm good enough now. I do not need the original anymore. That's in essence all I wanted, that conceptual original piece, right? Jack, welcome. Right, so now I'm going to delete this. I don't need this anymore, right? Because now this is my intake piece, right? And so now I'm going to put a little bit more refinement in this, okay? And I think this is where, again, I have a 1, 2, 3, 4 stage when I hard surface. And right now we're in stage 2. Stage 1 was the conceptual stage, figuring everything out. Stage 2 is now, let's just get these pieces looking hard surface, nice, clean looking hard surface, right? So that's the stage I'm in. And I want to emphasize this, okay? This is an important thing, transitioning from stage 1 to 2, 2 to 3, right? It's really important for me. Let's take a really close look, say, example, this image, right? So this is the part I'm playing with right now, right? What you need to do is not focus on, okay, I got to get these line cuts in, and then there's some detailing there. In stage 2, I'm not really concerned with that. In stage 2, I'm just like, let's just get this piece looking clean. And I'm more concerned of, let me just get this bevel here on this corner working the right way that I want it to work. Okay. And then I'll worry about these little cutting lines in stage 3. Okay. I don't focus on them in this stage. My focus on this stage for me is I want to get this shape now refined and making it look clean. So with that said, this is very boxy. So I need to turn our handy dandy dynamic subdivs on. Okay. So then I'm going to say yes. And now, beautiful. It's a bullet. It's a bullet. Okay. And John, to answer your question, why straight edge loops in models are important for production. I don't know if I would say it's just for production. I'm just saying for me personally, when I do low polygonal box model, if you start not keeping your edges straight, there's going to be times when you want to add edge loops, right? And if you have too many where your edge loops are like doing different angles, then when you want to go make an edge loop and you want that edge loop to actually be an edge loop, you've got a problem now, right? So you got to come up with a different way to add an edge loop so it doesn't look at the angling that's happening. So I tend to know that down the pipeline, and so I try to keep my edge loops straight where I can. And it's not always going to happen, okay? Well, Crow, there is an instancing systems in ZBrush, right? Nanomesh is an instancing system, and array mesh is an instancing system. But I, unfortunately, I can't say about anything about development. So I'd love to tell you all about development, but I can't talk about development, unfortunately. Okay, so I can't unfortunately answer. I can't answer your question completely. But I don't know if you've ever used either one of those. All right, so this is clearly not what I want, right? This is not this piece. It's not working, right? So I'm a guy that likes to live in the world of creasing. Crease, as I like to say. Okay, and then I think this is where, and I'm going to turn off Dynamesh now because I don't want Dynamesh anymore. I think this is where things now will kind of switch gears depending on what kind of box modeler you are. Okay, so I've turned on dynamic, right, which again is D to turn it on, Shift D to turn it off, D, Shift D, D, Shift D. And once again, guys, when I'm hitting my keyboard, please look at that bottom left corner. That's why we got that little widget there so you guys can see what I'm hitting. Last week it became my enemy. Okay, so now I'm going to say, okay, there's one way of workflow. How about I just start adding edge loops, right? So this thing starts to become a little bit more, right, like the shape we really want. Which is fine. This is, so you can see it's already starting to take on a little bit more of what we want. I don't like this workflow for me. I live more in the crease world because I'd rather not add more topology if I don't have to. And it's because of things like I'm going to put beveling here on here because you can see there's that little bevel there. And I don't have a really good image. Let's see if this one that shows me even what's happening on the bottom here. I'm just going to go with, I'm going to put a little bevel there as well. I'm just going to continue. And then see there's a bevel all around in the front too. That's what I'm going with. I'm going to make that decision for me on this. Okay. So creasing can help with this, number one. Okay. So if I hit this, open up my creasing. So let me pull this up so you guys can see it. So dynamics open. I'm going to hold the shift key as you guys can see and click on crease. That way dynamic subdiv stays open and crease stays open because I'm going to use these two menus together. Okay. And so I can just hit this crease button, right? And nothing happens. Nothing's going to happen because the angle, which is down here, is set to 180. So if I set this to half that, let's say 90 and hit crease, you can see there are now some parts being creased. Excuse me. So that angle is the plane shift that's happening, okay? And the edge, so for example, the shift of this, right, into this, right? These planes into this plane, what happens to that edge? That edge get creased or not get creased? So if I drop this again now, watch. If I drop this to 45 degree, right, and now hit crease, you see all this out here has gotten creased, right? And then you can see this is starting to be a little bit closer to what I really want to have, okay? And now I want this one edge right here to also be creased. So ZModeler, I'm going to hold the space bar over an edge, crease a single edge, and then there we go. Okay, and then now what we have is we're getting some softness through here, right? Which is what I want. I want some nice roundness through there. Daniel, I would not use the crease edge brush in this scenario because I'm super low polygon right now. So that's not going to work really well with this. That is more for if I have something a little bit more dense. Like I've done it for vehicles. Okay. Space Cookie. Seeing that I have 3 3D printers now, I probably would 3D print this. And I'd probably paint it and hang it in the corner in my office. I might end up doing that. I might just... And I've seen the original actual Dropship. I've been lucky enough to have been in Bob Burns' house and I've taken pictures with the original dropship that's in the movie and the original Sulaco. So he's got the original dropship like hanging from his ceiling. It's freaking awesome. I would probably do that same kind of thing. So my end result of this, honestly, would probably be 3D printing. It's just I prefer that world. I love that world. Okay. So, and to answer your question, tablet. I'm not using a tablet. I'm using the 32-inch Cintiq right now. Is what I'm using. I love the Cintiq because I love being able to put my hand exactly where I want things, and it's there. Okay, I'm just about it. Okay, I just like it. It gives me back the world of like I feel like I'm drawing. I just prefer a Cintiq. And this is Sam. This is from the movie Aliens. If you've never seen it, that's your homework for tonight, Sam. That is your homework. Is you need to be watching Aliens. Okay, John, to answer your question. Okay, let me go on a little bit, just one, because John's asking a question. I think people, this is really valuable information that John's asking. Okay, he was asking like, why don't you just use the crease brush? Okay, and the problem is I'm very, 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 very low polygonal. Okay, that's what I have. It's very low polygons. So if you go with the workflow you're talking about, let's just duplicate this. Okay, and then now let's Dynamesh this. All right. And let's take it out of dynamic. Okay, and let's go Dynamesh. Oh, Dyna. Oh, Dyna. And I'm going to give this a little bit more resolution, love. Yeah, like, so see, it's pretty dense. Okay, now to your question, okay, we've got this Dynamesh. And you were saying, why not just use the crease, right? This crease curve. Okay, which is a great brush. I can do lines like this. Right, and then that's creasing this edge. The problem now, if you throw Dynamesh in, look what happens. It's gone, right? Dynamesh can't maintain the creasing. It might be even something interesting to add. DiceK, make a note of that, right? So that's already, that is an eliminated process, okay? You can't use Dynamesh with creasing. You're going to lose the creasing, okay? So this is more for, I think, if let's say, for example, I want to put a nice, like, this is really good. Like the automotive people use this. They'll do something like this and they want like that. And then they want that line to show up. So then I'll come down here to deformations. Okay. And we have different types of deformations. And I can polish by crisp edge. Okay. And I'm going to go really strong. And you can see that line is starting to pop. Okay. So when I'm doing an automotive kind of thing too, I'll use that a lot, and I'll use it in conjunction with like these sliders. Okay, that's where it would make sense to use the crease. But in order to use, excuse me, in order to use this crease brush, you need to have some geometry. Okay, and I'm not doing that technique right now. I'm doing the I want low polygonal technique. Okay, so back to this. I've got creasing, all right, and I've got dynamic. Now, this is super, super, like, sharp. I don't want it this sharp. So number one, I want to solve a couple things. There's faceting happening here. Can you guys... Let me see if I can switch to a different material. Can you guys see that faceting? Like, right through here. Right? There's a little bit of faceting happening. There you go. Now you can see it better. Right there. Right? So I want to eliminate that faceting. I don't want that. That's an easy thing. Okay? Is I'm going to go here to my smooth and then just up it to number 3, up it to number 4, right? And then you can see that faceting is going to slowly go away, right? And in this case, all the way up to 5, it's pretty much gone. Okay? So this is important to me. I want a smooth surface. I like to live in 4, okay, because it's smooth enough. I know I'm going to do more things to this. Now, the next thing I want to do is this is still super crisp, sharp. This does not ever should be this sharp and crispy, right? At all, ever. Okay? So then I'm going to come down here in my crease menu, and right next to this tolerance, I'm going to use my crease level, and I'm going to drop this to 2, and then now you can see what that does. Right? Now we've got a little bit of chamfering happening here. Okay? And then maybe this is going to be a little too chamfered, so I'm going to move it to 3, and then that's now getting a lot better to what I want this to start looking like. Okay? That is starting to work for me now, right? I'm getting what I want here. right? And what's happening now is I'm dividing dynamically 4 times, okay? But then I'm telling that to only hold the crease edges for 3 of those 4 subdivisions, right? So on the 4 subdivision levels, the edges are allowed to smoothen a little bit. But because they weren't smoothing for multiple levels, then they don't round off really a lot. They're giving a small little chamfering here, okay? So make-believe TV, no. OBJs, your best thing, if you're trying to get this out to another application, like either obviously if you're using something like Maya, you could just use, we have the .ma extension. You could also just use GoZ, or you can use an FBX. So all 3 of those things you could do. You could just GoZ it over. It depends on the other application you're trying to get it in. And that other application also has to support creasing, right? The .ma and then FBX would be your next best format to get out. Okay? All right, so this is great and all, and this is going to be the one time I'm going to use a feature that always makes me go, because people tend to use it too much and not use it in the right way sometimes. So, and it's going to be a prime example of this. All right, so I'm going to screenshot this a little bit. I'm just going to, here, let's just get rid of this so we can just look at this piece that we're making. Okay, and then this is also going to be important to me. Now, I'm going to uncrease all. Okay, so we're back to this wonderful blobby looking thing. I'm going to get rid of the smooth subdivision. So we're back now to just a cube. So dynamics on, but nothing's happening to the mesh. And this is where now the QGrid is my next thing. Okay, so doing a QGrid, you can see is automatically giving me a bevel wherever I want that bevel. Okay, and you can see that bevel is happening on every single edge loop. So here's the problem with this. This is why you gotta be mindful of what you're doing here, okay? This clearly is not the profile I want. I want more of a profile like this. So if you're gonna use something like this QGrid, okay, you gotta understand every single edge, okay? So every edge that you just see here is going to get 2 more edge loops. One on the left of it and one on the right of it. So if I zoom in, and here we'll turn off the fill so you can see it better. And then here, let me turn on my magnifier. And let me get rid of actually all my, let me make the radius bigger. Let's get rid of the curvature and let's have no fade. There we go. Right? So you guys see, you see that there's more edge loops. Okay, because of that, there's no way you're going to be able to get this to be a smooth. Okay? Right? So this is why you got to be mindful of this piece. Yes, this is now going to give me this nice bevel that I want maybe here, because I can even change the coverage on the fly and say I want something a little bit bigger, something a little bit more like that is maybe what I'm going for. Okay? But you see everything's getting a bevel. So this is where you got to pick and choose, right? Which one's going to be the best for you, right, to use. Now, if you want to go this route because you really like this bevel that's happening right here, okay, you definitely can go this route, right? And what I would do in this scenario is, okay, well, this is giving me everything that I want in this except for this profile part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell ZBrush, okay, this looks good. I'm going to apply it. And now you can see these edge loops are show up now. So now I'm going to take the time and going, you know what? I don't want this edge loop and this edge loop anymore, and I don't want this edge loop and this edge loop anymore, right? And then I can pick and choose where I want even edge loops to be, okay? And then now turn back on dynamic, but go back to the smooth version of this, right? And then now this is being used, and then now I can say, let's go back to the world now of creasing. So I'm going to crease, I'll do complete edge loop, right? And I want that creased, I want that creased, I want that creased, I want that creased, and that creased. And now when I smooth, right, I've got this, right? And then now I've got I'll put a smoothness of 4, And I'm going to drop this down so it even lightens up that a little bit more. And then there. Right? So now I've got this shape. And now the beauty here is I use, in essence, QGrid just to get the topology. And now I'm using back to my workflow that I like. And now this helps me refine this shape. Because now I can use the slide, complete edge loop. And I can see I can change that profile now really easily. Right? And I can change and say, I want that to live more there. And I would even say this needs to live way higher up. More like that. And then this needs to live a little bit, whoops, more like in that realm. More like that, right? I want a little bit bigger profile like that. And then now let's turn on that conceptual dropship. And you can see now where I'm going with this. Right? And so this is what I'm trying to get to. Is that. So this is just a way of me cleaning this mesh up. Quick and easy, right? As fast as I can. Okay? And these pieces, whoops, not that. These pieces, right? And now you can start seeing everything working, starting to work together now to get, right? And then now I'm going to say, okay, I like that range, looking good. Okay, this is an intake, clearly, right? So we need some intaking in here. And then I'm going to say, you know what? I want this still to be a lot bigger. I'm going to actually use the edge loop here to refine this even more. And I just want that intake to be a lot bigger for me. Okay? And then now we've got ZModeler at our disposal. Okay? So I'm going to take this face. Okay? Oh, Winston, glad that helps. So I'm going to say spacebar QMesh. Instead of QMesh, I'm going to say inset. Okay? And then I'm going to say, let's inset this. And I like to change my polygroup, so I'm just tapping the Alt key. So I can make something very different, like that. Okay? And then I'm going to QMesh now this. Okay? But I'm not going to do this. Right? I'm going to put a little bit of that taper in there. Just a little bit of that. Okay? So you can see the difference. There's either this or this. I just want to put a little bit of lip in there for me, is what I'm going to go with. Okay? And I'm changing this by holding the Shift key. Right? So Shift key will be a move. If I'm not holding the Shift key, then it Q-mesh. So I'm just going to put a little one in there and then Q-mesh it. And then again, I'm changing my polygroup. And because I'm going to, if I'm going to 3D print this, you know, I want this to be a little bit more in there. Like, I don't want it really deep because I don't want to waste a lot of material, and then I don't want to have to worry about all the supports. I want to be able to get at that pretty quick. Okay, and then now let's take a look at this D key. Oh, not quite working for me, right? That's interesting, but that's not what I want. Okay, so then I'm going to come down here again into our crease level, and we're going to do the good old crease Paul Gaboury right there. Right? That good old crease Paul Gaboury. That's obviously not what it stands for, but darn it, I like to be bad jokes. Comics Legend, I had to shelf that project for now. I don't know. I'll be able to get back to it. Okay? So then I'm going to crease by polygroup. Right? And then every polygroup, in essence, is being creased, right? So wherever the blue's meeting the pink into this green, ugly color. And so what I want is also these edges creased, right? So I'm just going to use ZModeler crease partial, and that way it only goes there, and then it stops there. It doesn't continue on. And I want this look in my piece, something more like this, okay, to start happening. Okay, it's not quite there yet, and there's a reason for that we're going to get to. But if you start looking a little bit at this, especially this image here, there's a little bit of a taper, right? Just a touch, right? So I'm going to take these pieces here, right? And I want to taper those in a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to mask off, right? I'm going to center this. And then I'm going to go to my handy dandy deformers once again. I'm going to say I only need those, and I don't even need that one. I got symmetry on, and then now I do this, and I'm just going to put just a slight taper. Just a little one. Nothing aggressive. Right? So I want to put that taper in like that, just a little bit there, because the reason why this is rounding so much like that is I don't have any geometry in the middle, right, to support this. Okay? Ah, life lover. I like it. We like to have silly jokes here. And every now and then I got to do the look up here to wake you guys up, right? So I want to put an edge loop in dead center of this right now. So there's two ways really I could go about this. Okay. So think about it. I can go and say I'm going to hover over an edge, spacebar, insert edge loop. A single edge loop we don't have allowing you to be able to put it where you want it. So I'm going to switch to multiple edge loops. Okay. And I'm going to switch to specific resolution. In this case, it's set to 8. I'm going to drop this to 1. And then I'm going to tap on any one of these edges. And you can see there's an edge loop that gets put right in the middle. Okay? The other thing that's happening, though, is it's destroying my polygrouping. Because when you use multiple edge loops, it's going to create different edge loop gaps happening through here. Okay? So, I don't want that to change. So I'm going to go into my options of multiple edge loops. And at here, the bottom right corner, I'm going to turn on keep groups. So it's not going to change this. So I'm going to tap-a-roni, and you can see all of them stay. And then I can even do this. And you can see now this is starting to get a little bit more where I want that part to live, right? Okay, and then this is a combination of inserting edge loops with creasing. Okay, now another way to do this across this direction wouldn't work this way. This is why I'm showing you both. Is I could use mirror and weld. Right? So if we use mirror and weld now, if I hit mirror and weld, I get the other side. So you can see how easy it is for me to get the other side. What I'm going to do is I'm going to right now say, you know what? Let's locally, with this LSIM over here, let's locally look at this, okay? And tell ZBrush, no, just don't look at the center of the world to do your mirror and welding. Look at this part right here, okay? And so now when I mirror and weld, you'll see that edge loop drops dead in the center. Okay? And so what I want, reason why I want this, okay, and I'm actually going to completely uncrease those. And I'm going to now say, all right, I'm going to turn on symmetry. And because I'm locally, I'm now going to switch back to a single, right? I'm going to insert a single edge loop now. Right, and then now I'm going to turn off this poly framing, and what I'm going to do is just click an edge loop and watch those corners. See, I can make them be a little bit more aggressive there, okay? And I don't even need now that middle edge loop. I just deleted it, and then now maybe I'll add a middle one here, right? Just so I get more shape that looks like that. Okay, I want it to have a little bit more in there, right? Okay, and then now, excuse me, excuse me. All right, I need this piece, right, that they have going on in here. And now even looking at this, and now looking at this from this image, I would say this whole thing, looking at this, also needs to have a little bit of tapering. So I'm again going to go to my deformer here, right? And I'm going to drop this down and then do this and then just give it a slight little bit of taper also this direction. A little bit through there, right? And then now I say with all this tapering, I've lost some of the width in this, right? I've lost some of that width I would want in this. It needs to be a little bit wider in here for sure. Like you see this gap's now starting to get too big, okay? And you can see this is starting to move away, right? Which I don't want that, okay? So I can do two things here, okay? I'm going to show you both. I could just literally just en masse, right? The one side and then just start pulling over, right? And then now I've got the more of that width that I want maybe in there, right? A little bit more in there, okay? Or we could also just use a deformer, the extender, and then just extend it out. Right? It's up to you which one you want to use. And if you only want to move this side, then you take this red cone, you drop it all the way down, and then you're just moving only that side to get... It should live about that close to the cockpit. Right? But you see that's adding edge loops and a new polygroup. So you got to figure out which one you want to do, right? So I'm going to go with just the gizmo and just refine this profile a little bit more. A little bit more there. And I don't think I'm aggressive enough on the tapering at the top, right? So this part right here, I don't think this is aggressive enough, okay? So I'm going to make sure all those points, right, inside here, okay, are tapering. Now, this is where you got to understand topology. If I go this route, this edge loop's going to be a problem, right? So I'm going to get rid of it for now. Because the only edge pieces I want these parts to start having a little bit of a taper, okay? So then again, once again, I'm going to deformer, okay? And only this top portion, let's go a lot more aggressive. I just want a little bit more aggressive, right? Because I'm looking at this image right now. Wait, you guys can't see that well. I'm looking at this image. Let me resize this down, this up, right? And I'm looking at this line right here. Is what I'm looking at. Okay, so I definitely want a little bit more, just a little bit more there. And in fact, I also want the bottom to have a little bit of a taper too. Not a lot, okay? So let's take those bottom vertex points and let's go ahead and just taper those a little bit too. Okay, so I'm going to accept this. Let's clear our mask. We're going to make a new mask. And then I'll make a new deformer. And then this time I want these points to have just a little bit. A little bit there. Cool. Okay, and I'm going to accept that. See if I kind of like what I got here. You know what? I'm going to go a little bit more aggressive still up here. Excuse me. Something stuck in my throat today. And I'm going to go for it. I'm just going to go pretty aggressive. Yeah, I'm going to go more in that realm. Okay? And then now, once again, I've lost a little bit of that overall volume. Again, I'm switching from W key to go back and forth between gizmo and the deformer. And I'm just going to, again, I'm going to move this side a little bit more this way. And then I'm going to say, there you go. I'm happy with that. And then there is that intake, right, for the front of this dropship. As far as keeping things aligned, when you say 3D Studio Max and coordinates, are you talking about XYZ values and position in the world? Is that what you're talking about? If that's what you're talking about, let me know. And then to your question, and making this a little bit more rounded, that's because I'm creasing, right? I could also just get rid of the crease, and then see it's going to be more rounded now. It's going to have a little bit more rounding to it, see? So it's a combination of both. Right now I'm using some creasing with bevel topology, okay? And then go from there. I don't use Shadowbox, no, as much as I used to. Especially now that there's also the new masking creation brushes. I don't use Shadowbox as much as I used to. Right? And so, and then if you want to, right? If I'm looking, I'm assuming your question is you're trying to round this part out. You want this to be a chamfer. I didn't want that, right? So from the get-go, I made topology that didn't support that on purpose. Okay? So you could, if you wanted to, right? You got an edge loop going through here, so you could mask these edge loops. right? And then just only those middle ones. And then you could just throw a little inflate on these if you wanted to. So come down here and just throw a little bit of inflate. Probably don't need a lot. Something like that. And then now, see, they'll become a little bit more rounded. See? There you go. In fact, I like that better. So good call. I like that. Okay, so aligning along the axis, you do have that in ZBrush, actually. Now I think I'm too aggressive with the front. Like, this is where you gotta just move on, right? In some cases. So let me accept what we have, because I don't know where I left off with the deformer. And then let me now, I got a little too aggressive. I think it's too much now for me. I said I wanted to go real aggressive. I've changed my mind. It's too much. Too much. Okay. That's better for me. Okay. There are coordinates in the sense that you maybe are used to. So there's a position slider right here. So you can position stuff within the world this way. That's the only thing that's, and then you can see there's a size slider as well. That's it. But there'll be no rotation sliders like that, what you're asking. So you can use these to align along an axis. Like if I wanted to zero out my X and my Y, this is where I could go and do that. So then it's only in the Z, sitting in one spot in the Z. So that might be what you're looking for. And this is in the geometry menu. Okay. So I'll close everything. It's in the geometry. And then down here at the bottom, we have position and size. Okay. All right, so let's continue on. I'm going to finish this one off. I think I'm going to go a little bit deeper with the blue here. So I'm going to Q mesh, polygroup all. I'm going to pull on that, but I'm going to use the shift key. Just make it be, I'm going to go a little bit deeper. Okay, something more like that. Okay, and this is, again, see, I need this rounding that's happening in here. Right? That's because I don't have an edge loop. Right? This way. Right? So I see a little more of an edge loop there. And then I can put an edge loop there. And then now that's giving me what I want inside. And then now we need to make this piece right here. Okay? So I'm going to just reuse what we have. Which, this is already here, right? I already have these faces here. So I might as well just reuse those faces. It just makes the most sense to reuse those faces. Okay? I'm going to, okay, and again, thinking about this is a great question someone asked. If this is going to be a 3D print, I got to think about this in a different way, okay? Because this is all got to be watertight, right? So this probably makes the most sense if I'm going to 3D print this, okay, is to take this Q mesh face and only this face and then just Q mesh that up. Right? So then in essence, this is that volume that I'm going to use to do this port right here. Okay? Because I want this all to print. I don't have to worry about little gaps and spacing in there. Okay? If I wasn't doing this as a 3D print and I'm just doing this for something else, then I might take a different approach to this. Okay? I might just take this and this little piece and rip it off. And see, I have this. And then now I can take this, and then you can see there's that. Okay? So to that person's question, it's a great question, right? In the game world, they're going to worry about the same thing kind of in this case scenario with 3D printing. They would want probably all this to be one mesh. It just makes the most sense. In the film world, they don't really care, right? They wouldn't even have, in the film world, that face, there's a face back there. They would delete that face. There's no point even keeping that face in some cases. In some cases, it's going to be better to just use paneling. So because I'm going to probably 3D print this at the end, I'm going to take this, move that up, okay, to there. And then now I need this part. So I'm actually going to do this where I rip it off. Okay, I'm changing the polygroup. So I'm holding the control key to rip it off. And then now I'm tapping the alt while I'm holding control. Right? So you can see this. Okay, in there. Okay. Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. Hold on. My daughter's going to go with my wife. Okay, so this again is me clicking on this control key and I'm pulling this off. That's all I'm doing. Okay? And I want this because I want to get this little ramp thing happening. So I'm just going to use this existing topology. We'll do this. Okay? And now I want this. It needs to live in a certain location here, right? So this is going to be this piece. And this is going to start, I'm going to start having this be rounded. So I'm going to unmask everything but this piece. Center it. And then I'm going to move it down. And I'm going to go a little bit of a rotation. I'm going to go 25 degrees. Okay, so now I need this to live, I'd say right about there in space a little bit. Something like this. And then because this face and this face are identical, they're the same size, right? Everything's the same. Okay, hold on. My dogs are now in here. Okay, so now I'm actually going to say let's delete, right? I'm going to say delete this face and delete this face. Okay, so I'll turn on display properties. Okay, so you can see that. And now what I'm going to do is say edge loop, close, but let's do a convex hole. Okay. Yeah, that was wholly the entire team you guys just saw. Wife, child, and dogs. And I'm going to say maybe spline. Let's find out which one's going to work the best. Okay, and then now I'm going to say click that edge. There's my first edge. Okay, and now I come to this one of these edges up here. And then tell it to, well, might help, bridge, not close, bridge. And I want to click here and then to here, right? And then just get a couple spans, right? And then this is giving me an arc in there, right? And then of course you can, when you click this and click this, right, you have the ability to add more spans, play with the arch with those spans if you want to. So moving up and down, right? Left to right is changing the arch, okay? Up and down, and that is adding more topology. And you can even control, right? So if I'm looking at this edge, you can even control where the pivot is, right? So I can say pivot actually on the clicked edge, right? So if I click here and then click here, right? It's using those 2 points. I only need this. I only need one right now. Something like that. And I actually now don't need this edge loop, right? And then now turn that on, okay? And then this, right, is missing some topology, right? Right, so again, this is when I'm doing all this, and I'm just making sure when I Q mesh this. Oh yes, we have the one thing that's important, right? When I did this, there's all these edge loops in here too. So there's more than one face in here, actually. So I have a little gap here. Because I'm 3D printing that, I'm going to go and adjust this. I need to have actually this face be all the way up. And I need this face to be all the way up. And then now this, whoops, now that face, right? So there was actually 3 faces in here, right? Because when I do this, I want to make sure it looks like that. Okay? So then I'm going to say, all right, let's redo this part again now. Q mesh this off, change the poly group. Okay, I need some volume in order to do the bridging. And now again, I'm going to center this based upon the mask here. So let's center it, boom. And then let's put a little bit more of an angle on it. And now let me just position it where I probably am going to want that to live. I'd say maybe I'm going to go a little bit more extreme with the angle this time. And then once again, we are deleting this edge, deleting that edge, and then I'm going to bridge, and then maybe not spline, maybe arcs would be better for this one. Yeah, see, the arc is better. Yeah, I'm going to say I'm going to live right about there. So there. Something like that. Right? And then now when I hit the D key for dynamic, this is what I'm getting. Okay? And then now I need to go and crease up these edges here, right? I need these creased, right? Oh, and in a matter of fact, again, I messed up again. This is just me being me, right? I forgot that I need those other three little faces, right? So I'm going to Q-mesh, polygroup all, and then make sure I'm taking all three faces, right? Because I need those little slivered ones there too. It's going to happen. I'm going to get this right eventually. This is sometimes what happens when I'm trying to talk and stream. I don't get what I want. There we go. Again, man, you guys are seeing this enough times. You guys are all going to be able to do this. You're all going to be just experts. Right? And then now I'm going to say delete. This time I'm going to say flat island. Delete that. Delete those. And then now let's do our handy dandy bridging. And then let's do our bridging. There you go. Now we've got them. There. And then now we need to start creasing all this, right? So I want these edges creased. Okay. So I want those creased. Right? And here, I'm going to solo this out. So we're just looking at this. I want those creased. And everything else is creased. I say I don't even need this edge loop anymore. I'm going to get rid of that edge loop. And then boom. Now we have this. Okay, we can start seeing what that looks like. Okay. And then I'm going to slide this now. Complete edge loop. And let's just play with this profile a little bit. There. Okay. And then I definitely now need some more edge loop support here. Okay, so I'm going to throw an edge loop in the middle here. Again, I'm going to use the specific, so I get an edge loop there. I'm going to turn on symmetry now and do a single edge loop and just start buttoning up that a little bit more through there. And then there you go. Right? And then you know what? It might need that other edge loop. I want that to be a little bit more stronger there. And then there you go. Okay. So, this is important, right? So that question was a great question somebody asked. And then I'm going to add another edge loop. Whoops. Whoops. Add another edge loop along here. Just to tighten that inside portion up a little bit more. And then we can add another edge loop this way just to tighten that part up a little bit more in there. Okay, but this is where you got to be careful now, right? You see this line that's starting to show? This is why I tend to not go by edge loops. Because I added now this edge loop, that's also affecting this edge in here, right? So let me see if I uncrease this. If it's giving me there, yeah, I want a little bit more like that, right? And honestly, maybe we can even get rid of that. Yeah, there we go. Right? So the more edge loops you add, the more it's also changing that profile a little bit of what we've made, right? Right? So I don't like what that's doing at all. So I'm not going to put that edge loop in. I'm going to go backwards in there. And let's get rid of this one there and get rid of this one. So we have something a little bit more like that. just a little bit smoother surface in there. There we go. Okay. And let me see if I uncrease that. Yeah, that looks better there. And let me recrease that edge there. And I'm going to just crease that edge there. And let's crease, make sure these are creased. There, okay. Something a little bit more like that. And I'm going to add another edge loop here, just to refine that shape in there a little bit more. And an edge loop in there too. There we go. Okay. And then there we have it, right? And then now all I need is the other side of this, right? So I'm going to now just go back to our mirror and weld, turn off local, and mirror and weld it over, and there I got both intakes now. Right? So let's move on, and let's look at a different technique, and let's do this piece here. Okay, since this piece is in line with these intakes. Okay, so let's move on to that. And then now the benefit of me being low polygon is I can still adjust all this stuff, right? Like this is not right still, looking at it, right? Looking at this, it's probably going to need to be a little bit different kind of profile in there. But I'm not going to touch that until I get the cockpit. But it's low polygon, so it's super simple to maintain, right? So this purple piece here is now this piece right here with the red, this piece right in here, right? Looking at this. Looking at that piece there. Okay, so I want to now refine this shape and get this going. Guadalajara. Wow, thanks for coming. Okay. Okay, so there's obviously we can, again, we got ZModeler at our disposal. Okay, so I want to show a different way of looking at this. So once again, let me look at just this. Okay, we definitely, I don't need all of this. So I'm going to get rid of as much of this as I can. So let me just turn on and make sure it's not going too far. Right, so I'm just going to say right about to there. Okay, and then there. Okay, that's good. All right, and then now I want to take this and make a new piece of geometry. Okay, so the last technique we looked at was using like a cube, all right, to do this. There's going to be other ways to make this work for us, okay? There's more than one way to clean these up, all right? So in this case, I'm just trying to go which one I want to show you guys to go with. I'm going to go with, let's look at polishing this up a little bit. Okay, and just making it a cleaner surface with what we have here. Okay, so I'm going to now split this off. Okay, so I'm going to do a split here. I'm going to do, I think I'm already split off. We don't need to. Okay, so this is split off. And I'm going to now start assigning other polygroups here. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is if I'm going to stick in this Dynamesh mode, I'm going to turn off this groups. Let's give it more resolution. So I'm going to double my resolution here. Okay. I'm just going to do a little slight smoothing, right, on this mesh, right? And I need to turn off, because I'm using Spotlight as a reference, I need to make sure I turn off Spotlight projection so that I can get a little bit more. That might be dense enough. Let's go a little bit more. Let's just double that. Okay, there, that's pretty dense. That's pretty dense. Okay, then so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some trim, and some maybe even clipping. Okay, so I want to assign polygroups to this. Okay, so I want the bottom to be its own polygroup. So the easiest way to do that is with the trim curve, right? So I can just trim just the bottom of it, and you see it just made a new polygroup for me, right? So now the bottom has its own polygroup, okay? And then so I want this side here, let's trim this just a little bit, okay? And so now that has got a polygroup. And again, I'm going to have to use mirror and weld so I can get the other side, because this brush does not work symmetrically. Okay, and then here, I need this to straighten out a little bit there. Okay, perfect. And then now here, the design actually has a little bit of something like this happening, and then doing this. Right, something like this. Now, this is where trim brush is not going to work for me. This is why I'm saying it's be a combination. Okay? You can see the result I'm getting here. This is not the line that I want. This is because the trim brush is just closing a hole off. That's all it's doing. We're making a slice, in essence, in your surface. So there's the slice, right? But now it's got this gaping hole. So it's just closing the hole off. But it's not working in the sense like, oh, I know to go this direction, more of like a bridging look to it. It doesn't know that, right? So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to switch to the clip curve brush, because this brush will allow me, and this brush is also symmetrical, to do stuff like this, right? And you can see I'm getting that little lip that's actually in the design. The lip's not that big, right? It's a lot smaller. It's something like that, more in that world. Okay, now, the thing here is I'm trying to do polygrouping, right? So this is all still one polygroup. So I'm going to, in essence, take care of this by turning on polygroup. Okay, so I am telling the clip brush, now when I go to clip, every time I clip, give me a new polygroup. And you guys are going to see why the polygrouping is going to become important for me. Okay? And so now I go, okay, let's put that little lip in here. So it's got a little lip that goes there, and then double tapping the Alt key, and then just going down the line, and then boom, you see I get a new polygroup. And then when you Dynamesh, right, all those polygroups, right, are being maintained and done, right? So the other thing now is I want to take this new polygroup, and now I'm going to switch to slice curve, because I want this flat area here to have its own polygroup, right? So now I have this as my shape. And again, I'm going to need to mirror and weld because the slice brush is not symmetrical. So you can see this is what we have. And you can see kind of how rough it is as I'm rotating. And now to clean this up and just get this shape to be a little bit more clean, okay, I'm going to come down here to my deformations, and I'm going to do a polish by groups. Okay? And then this is going to start polishing wherever there's polygrouping happening, right? So wherever you have that polygrouping happening, and then for this case, I'm going to stick with only this portion having Dynamesh on it. Okay, and again, I'm going to mirror and weld, right? And then now polish by groups, and everything's going to start getting a little bit cleaned up. I'm going to open this circle up right here, this little circle, and then this is a stronger algorithm, right, that's happening here now. Right, so I got a little bit of a stronger algorithm happening, but if you now look, see how clean the surface is? It's nice and clean. Okay? And then this is kind of what I'm looking for. And I'm going to refine this piece a little bit more. Let's do this. And let's just make this piece come forward a little bit more. Let's use the clipping for this. Okay, and I'm going to just straighten this out a little bit. More like this. And I'm going to turn off the polygrouping so that this can all come forward a little bit more. So that line, I want it to be a little bit more straight. And then let's polish it again. Right, a little bit of refinement here. Okay, and this started getting rounded on me, right? So obviously it would have been nice to make a point of interest right here. Right, so this is where, I don't know if that person's still here. Here's a great example, okay, of using now, let's add a crease through here. Right, so this edge right here in the middle, I want to crease. So you could do this, right? And then instead of using polish by groups, I'm going to use polish by features. Okay, and you're going to see this is it. It's going to start sharpening right there. Okay, see that? So it's creating a sharpness right there because it's now got a creased edge right there. Right, so you have that ability as well, okay? And I'm going to just refine this. I'm going to push this back just a little bit. So this is just a way of taking something that already you have and then just start cleaning it up a little bit. Right, and then just use these options to really get what you want. And right, and see there, now I've got a super clean piece from the Dynamesh. So if we turn off solo, you can see what that starts to look like. Right? Now, you can just stay like this if you want to. Okay? If you want to do something like that. All right? And then, or I can say, you know what? I want to, it's pretty dense. I want to knock down the density and play with that a little bit. So then this is where your Z-remesher comes into play. Okay? So now I can turn off Dynamesh. Z-remesher, keep my groups on. I'm going to turn down the smoothness. I'm going to try without it. I don't think I need it. I'm going to be symmetrical, right? So symmetry's on. And 5,000's a lot. I'm going to go actually, I'm going to see what 500 does. So I'm going to put this target count at 500. And then we'll remesh that and see what we get. And then obviously this is the beauty of Z-remesher, is we can try and do some things. And the reason why I'm also going to do this is then it's low polygon. I still have, as you can see, polygrouping here happening. So now when I turn on dynamic, you can see these edges now get soft for me right away because it's so low polygon now. Okay. And then now I have that, and I want, looking at this, I think it's a little too much softness. So let's go ahead and crease by the old PG'er. So all those points get sharp again. And we've got dynamic. You know me, I like to put that at 4. And let's drop our crease level. Yeah, I want something more like that. Let's see what 1 looks like. I think 1 might be a little too much for me. I think I like 2. Yeah, 2's working for me. Okay, and then there you go. We have something like this happening. And then now I'm also switching to ZModeler, and I'm going to crease this edge here too, right? Because I want that to be a little bit stronger point, because that's what it's doing in the concept. It has a little bit stronger point there, right? So I can either crease all of this, okay? Or I just crease really, I only need this edge, and this edge creased. I don't need everything creased. And then there's that shape. Boom, done. Right? So that's another way to go about this, is just use the existing shapes that I already have, right? And then now just build upon it. And it starts to come down to, what are you doing, right? And what are you trying to make? Okay, so my next piece I'd probably go to, since these are all kind of a relationship piece, and I can already see it. I got a little bit too aggressive with certain things here. The cockpit I don't think is big enough, right? Especially the width of it. Maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. So, but then that's the next piece I want to create, right? Because I want to, these are all now relationships happening. And then the point of me doing that very beginning stage really quick block out was I've got the relationships pretty good right from the get-go. Instead of me sitting here trying to make all these and then, oh no, now I got to get the... I already can see if it's off a little bit and I can make some adjustments really fast. Right? I think it's just I'm tapering it too much is my problem. I think once I now rebuild this, it'll be a little bit better. And I think these are sitting a little... I got to fix those a little bit too. And then this definitely needs to be... This piece that I just made, right? It needs to be a little bit wider, I would say. Okay? It's definitely needs to be a lot more wider. If I look, it comes almost to the end of that right there. Right? And see, this is where all the relationships. But now that I have already the pieces made up, I can start refining things quicker now. Right? So I would probably, for me, for this one, to refine this a little bit, I would do, again, a deformer. This time I would 100% make sure there's a midpoint. Okay? Because I don't want these to move. And I want just these to move. And come way more out. And then that way, more like right there. Right? There. Quick. Quick and simple refinement. Okay? And then now, move on to the cockpit. And you can see that changes now this one. So I already know this piece, this red one right here. This needs to be a little bit wider, for sure. Okay, which means this is needing to be a little bit wider, which means this is going to need to be a little wider, which means this is going to be a little bit more wider. So there is a waterfall effect, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take care of this section, get this perfect the way it looks. Then I'm going to come back and then start refining these again really quickly. Get those reproportions just a little bit more based upon now the clean pieces. And then I can keep doing these workflows in this process. Okay? So for me, the cockpit, I'm going to go with, for the cockpit, I'm going to go with just a cube, right? Looking at this from all these images, let me look at this side one. So you're going to have some roundness here. You got it. We know it's got a little bit of tapering in from the cockpit, right? So I want to take a look at that from the top and really get my head wrapped around this. So let me look at, say, from this angle. It's a slight, like it's a little bit smaller here than here, right? You can see that right there to right there, right? And I can even use this, right? So I can even use my transpose line, right, as a way to even see that relationship. So I can do, say, something like this and say right about there. Okay, so right now from where my image is, that's 6.2. We'll just round it up. And then, and again, but this is also an image that's got a little perspective. I would say it's a tad bit more there, right? So it's just a little bit bigger. And I can see now this is 6.6. So the one was 6.2. This is about 6.6. So it's not a big adjustment. So I kind of now know that in my head. I know that that back end's going to have a little bit of a taper to it, right? So this is where my mind, I like to go really quick. I reevaluate my images, look at these again, okay, right? And make sure I've got really where I need to know where I got to go. I take a look at the side again, profile. Take a look at that. So we got some roundness here. So let's see if I got a good image from the bottom that really supports that. Yeah, I can see. So you see there's some roundness, and even in here, this has got this happening. Right? Completely different than the top. They're not even close, remotely the same, right? So that means for me, there's going to be a bottom section that's different than the top section. So for me, I'm now even looking at this cockpit is two pieces for just the main cockpit. I'm not talking about the front, this front circular piece. I'm talking about from that piece. I'm talking from here back. I'm not even looking at this. I'm looking at back there to here. Okay? So now that I've looked at this bottom, I got this, I see there is a pretty solid line of information right here. Okay, and then let me see if this image, what I got in there. Yeah, I can see, look, there's definitely where you've got a plane and all of a sudden it shifts really fast, right? So there'll be a little bit of a harsh line there in the lighting, right? So when lighting hits that, you're going to see that transition pretty good, right? And that's why in here you're starting to get a shadow from the light, because there's a pretty strong transition happening right there. Okay, so now I'm looking at this as two pieces, because it's going to be easier for me. The top part's more boxy look, but the bottom part's not. The bottom part's more of like a spherical shape more than anything. Okay. Dan does. That's another good name. I love it. Okay. That's a good question. Any tips on getting used to hard surface modeling faster? Honestly, the only tip I could give you is the same thing as organic. Unfortunately, you got to do it. You got to just make stuff. Okay. But what I would say is, when I try, for example, when I get somebody that's new into ZBrush and then they're just trying to learn ZBrush, and also let's add to that element, they're just even trying to learn sculpting. The number one assignment I give people is, all right, let's do a human skull, right? Because you can get tons of references and things like that from a human skull. But then what I usually challenge the students is, okay, you only get, though, 15 minutes to do the skull, and that's it. Right? And what that forces you is you're training your artistic eye to see things that are off and that are on. And then I tell them minimum do 5 of those. So you're looking like an hour session, right? And if you want to be really aggressive, do 10 of them. And I guarantee you by the 10th one, you'll have almost the entire skull sculpted, and it'll look way better. It'll look a lot like a skull. It's just muscle memory, right? So with that idea, I would say hard surface wise, find something simple to sculpt. Like I'm talking start simple. Like this Swell water bottle is really simple, so that you can understand the relationships that happen when you want to get, this is pretty straight along here, right? But you can see it doesn't stay straight. It starts moving in this direction and then comes back to straight. How are you going to get that profile? It's hard to see because of my black shirt. Right? How are you going to get this profile that's right here? Right? That kind of stuff. Starts simple. Right? And then move up to say even something like now a remote control. Right? But this particular remote control, right? Profile has some nice, slow chamfering happening right here. But then on the edges here, it's got beveling. And that beveling travels all the way around here. Right? And then now how are you going to do the buttons? Like, honestly, pick simple objects and just start from that. And then I'm telling you, you'll start getting things and it'll all start coming together. Okay? So hopefully that helps. All right, so let me now move on to my cockpit here. And again, now knowing this is going to be 2 pieces for me. I'm going to now have that mindset, right? And again, I think this is so important. This will save you time. If you just break down your images again, especially as you move along, I already know proportionally I'm in a pretty good place. I'm not perfect, but I'm in a pretty good place because of I took the time in the last stream to block this out. Okay? So Pro 4210, he or she is, bringing up that they use pencil sketches, right? Absolutely. I'm with you. It's the same thing for drawing. That's why for all of you that have taken like figurative drawing classes and stuff, that was assignments I had. Like I literally had like some assignments like I saw the model for only 1 minute and I had to just draw. I have 1 minute to draw. And then they knocked me down to 30 seconds and then knocked me down to 15 seconds and then knocked me down to 10 seconds. Right? And it's just training that eye, I think, is the most difficult part. All right. So again, we're going to start splitting this off. Okay. So let's go ahead and split this. All right, and I'm going to now call this now the top cockpit. Oh, my caps lock is on. Guys, I'm telling you, it's important to name stuff as you're going along here. It's just going to make your life easy. Or top cockpit. All right, and so since I know right here, and see, I kind of saw that coming, right? I saw that coming a little bit in the design that I have. But I'm going to say, all right, I now can see at the bottom of this, this actually, and let's go ahead and I'll put up a little bit more resolution now in my Dynamesh. So we don't need groups now. I'm just going to double it so we just get a little bit more. I'm going to clip this right along that line, right? And give me that, right? So now I'm only looking at this, right? And then now that's the top part of this. And then I'm going to have another piece, and it's all going to weld together. It's going to go back to being one piece, so I can have a nice transition in here. But to make this, it's going to be easier to just split it in halves, in two. Okay? So for this particular one, I'm going to go ahead and use a cube. So I'm going to turn off Dynamesh now, right? And this is going to be, let's rename this. This is the concept one. Right, I'm going to duplicate that. Okay. And there are ways, I'll show you guys other things sculpturally that you can just go sculpting this if you wanted to. Right? I'll show them when I get back to these missiles and even other ways to go about this. All right, so I'm going to hold the shift key and click on that eyeball. So the only thing I get is this. So that turns off every other subtool. And you know what? I have not saved this entire time. So let's go ahead and make a save. And I've turned off autosaves just for streaming purposes. Okay, let's save that up. And as you know, I'm going to say I got the top cockpit, right? This one. And then I have another one, right? So I have this one and this one. So there's two, right? So now I'm going to take this one. Let's rename this back to that. And now I'm going to replace this with, again, a cube. And again, the benefit to me is I already know what size this should be, right? So it's just a simple, again, 6-sided cube. I'm just going to do something like this. And then it should come out right about there. And then I'm going to go right about there. Okay, this portion should not be this tall. I'm going to go right about there, right? And then obviously, if I'm centering this, this should be a little bit, I think I'm going to go a little bit wider like that. Something like that. Okay, and then now I'm going to turn on this and see how close that is. So see, it's a little bit close. However, I have not yet smoothed this surface. See, that gap's a little bit there. There's a little bit gap there, right? So that's off a little bit. But I'm going to do this. Right? I got to smooth it out. Okay? So, but before I do that, okay, let's get, again, this shape here. So the best thing would be is let's take an insert of an edge loop, throw that shape right there. Okay? And now you can either do this, right, to get that shape, or you could even, if you wanted to, you guys could do this, okay, and then Q-mesh that out, and then now just pull on that face, right? So I'll need ghost. And then see, now you got this. Now, the difference between this is you've now got an edge loop there, and you got an edge loop right there. So, right? So there's two edge loops here at the top now, right? Compared to this, right, workflow, you're not doubling up the edge loops there at the top. Okay, so this is all very something to think about. I want to say, I guess I am a little too wide on that. Okay, so then there is starting to become that top part of this cockpit. All right. Okay, so number one, I know the back end needs to taper a little bit. Okay. Number two, I know there needs going to be a taper in here, right? Because it needs to have a little bit like that window, right? So you can see if you were looking straight at this ship, you would still see a little bit of the side, right? Just a touch, just a little bit, okay? So let's go and refine this a little bit. All right, so I'm going to turn on now actually dynamic. So we don't need the concept anymore. So I'm going to delete that. Bye-bye. Okay, and then now this. I definitely want this stuff creased. So I'm going to go geometry and crease. I'm going to do a crease all. And then I'm going to say we don't want this at all the way creased. So level 2 again, right? And then dynamically, we're going to divide up 4. So I start to soften this up a little bit. Just start getting me a little bit more of that shape. And I'd say for this right now, I'm going to move the crease level to 3. Just so it keeps a little bit more of that harshness that's in the that part of the cockpit. Okay. Hi from India. Wow. Well, I don't even, what time is it there? Okay. And then now I know back here, right? This needs to be tapered just a little bit. Again, it's not a lot. Okay. So I'm going to center this. I'm going to make sure I reset this and just taper that just a little bit in there. Okay. So that gives me that. I'm going to now also turn on that other nice clean piece that we've been making, which is this part right here. Okay, so that I can see this relationship, especially from above. I want to see how that looks. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Okay, and then so I need now a taper on this at the top here as well. Right, and just a little bit one. Just start giving that a little bit of taper there. Something like that. So I got that because I want to be able to see a little bit in here. Right? Okay. So now I got something like that. And I would say that's looking pretty good where we're at right there. Looking at pretty good there. This is going to get blocked. Okay, so I'm looking in here. Looking at that. Now let me look at the side. Let me make this bigger. Okay, so this needs to be fixed. Because right now I've got that look, which is not right at all, right? So this edge can't be creased. So I'm going to uncrease this edge so it becomes round. And then now, that's not working right now correct either, right? So then this is where I'm now going to start doing a combination of things. And I'm going to look at, okay, I think it's tough to see. I'll have to see if I can find an image straight on profile. But this needs to be maybe a little bit higher. But we're going to see once we do this. I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to add an edge loop. So, and then see, this is the important part. So you see this edge loop? Here, let's turn to solo. See how it's got an angle like this? Right? And if you guys remember from last time, I prefer, if I can, to have something like this. Right? Does that make sense? Right? It'd be better to keep that straight. And then now I can slide this, right, along. And then I can play with that roundness that's supposed to happen in the cockpit. Okay? Because that's what I'm more wanting, some kind of more rounding like that to start happening. Okay, and I feel, I think I was right with my, this, we need to go a lot taller with this. Right, and now I think actually I might be a little too wide. And here's what I'm probably going to do next. To see if the width I have here is good or not good, right? Again, it's all about relationships for hard surface. Okay? So the most important thing of this particular part of the cockpit is this, the windows, right? And looking at these, making sure that I get enough space to put the windows in there. Okay? Random question from Christopher. But is it possible to combine multiple nanomeshes index into one subtool? So you asking, like, do you want to convert, like, say you have 4 indexes on one something, now you want to make them one? No. but you could have done that from the beginning. So it's a yes/no answer, in essence. All right. Well, let's go ahead and, this is a quick one. Okay, this is a quick tangent. Okay. All right. So let me turn these off for now. Okay. So then, to answer your question. Okay, and then some people might not even know what nano is, right? I'm just going to grab, let's just grab this shape, and let's turn this into a nano. Okay? And so now, when you draw out, there's that nano, right? And you got that nano, okay? And then if I keep going, I can have different nanos. So now the Nanomesh menu has multiple indexes, right? So you do have the ability down here, right, to do one to mesh, okay? So which is in essence converting each nano into a physical piece of geometry, okay? But instead of, okay, doing this, right, what you've done, when all right, and I'm going to now grab another plane, and let's change this so that you can visually see what's happening here. Let's change this to, let's go 6 by 6. Okay, perfect. All right, I'll make that a polymesh. So when I draw that out, if you want another one that's on there, right, too, okay, if I grab this, you can see I can add both on the same, right? So this, okay, is having, right, it's got two indexes, but they're on the same polygroup. So maybe you were trying to do something like this, I guess is where I'm guessing maybe why you wanted to ask that question. So there is an ability to put multiple nanos on one base, if that's where your question's coming from. But otherwise, no, you can't. There's no collapsing of one nano into another and keep it a nano. There's only either convert them, turn them all into a brush, right? And then replace Nanomesh from the brush, so you can swap it out and then either delete or delete. That's it. And then one of these days I'm going to make a t-shirt called Nano. Okay? So I don't know if that's really clearly answering your question, but that's it in essence. Okay? Back to this. Okay, so let's see. We're going to put that there. Put that there. Okay, so again, I was just talking about the windows are really, really, really important. Okay? So instead of me sitting here with this nice clean portion of the cockpit that I'm trying to get to make happen, and I'll be honest with you, I'm going to have to either do some other refinements here as well. Okay? Like, I think, like, for example, this is now tapering too much. Like, this portion here, right? I think it should be a little bit more straight on, like that, a little bit more, right? Because looking at this, it doesn't taper so much from the front. Okay, it's more the tapering's happening back here. Okay, and then I need more topology in here because there needs to be a little bit of some slight, like right now this is perfectly flat. There's going to need to be a little bit of some roundness here. Not a lot, just a little bit. Okay, so again, before I get into any of that, I'm like, okay, is this piece even working right now? Do I have the right proportions right now for this? Okay, that's really where my concern's at right now. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I need to start seeing, well, what do these windows start really looking like? Okay, and I want to see if right out the gate, do I have the little bit of proportions where I want them? Okay, so to make that easy for me, let's go ahead and duplicate this cockpit. So I'm going to turn off the clean one. Okay, and then this one is now I'm going to rename this. Okay, and I'm going to rename this Windows. All right, and I'm going to now apply the dynamic subdivs. Okay, so now I have a lot of topology here. Okay, and I'm going to well, it's not a lot, it's 4,000 polygons. So I'm going to divide up some more and more, okay, because I want to be a little bit more dense. Okay, and now I got to look at this and say, okay, this window does certain things here. Okay, so from the side view, you've got a little bit of some angles here. Okay, and then from the front, it's just straight across. So this is pretty simple. Okay, it's not too crazy. And I can already tell you, looking at this, I'm off, right? If you look at where this is sitting and looking at that gapping right in there, you can see I don't have really a lot of room right here. So I already have this off a little bit. Okay, I can already see that this is off. So is it, I got to double check, right? Is it that is off, or is it this piece is off, right? So I got to relook at this and say, I think it's this is off. This cockpit is off, right? I don't have it. Look, see this gap right in here? There's not enough there. 100%. There's not enough in there. Okay, so I'm going to delete my subdivision levels and use my handy dandy deformer. Okay, so I'm going to deformer and then take these points, and this needs to come way out here. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to say more like in that realm. Okay, which means the profile of what we're getting here. So I'm going to accept this, and I'm actually going to change this profile a little bit too with these points. I'm going to say it's more like that. There, right? That's looking more closer to what we want, right? And you know what? I think I overdid the taper a little too much. So I'm going to get this, and again, this is why I love this deformer. I use it all the time. Let's readjust this taper a little bit. Just go a little bit wider. I think that taper was just a little too aggressive. Okay, now that is great. Now I want to take this, and this is obviously the benefit of if I have an image that lines up perfectly, I can do this, right? So I'm going to now go and say, okay, this cockpit has, from the profile view, okay, it's got to have some space here. Okay, so then I'm going to go the windows with my slice curve. Okay, I'm going to say, okay, there's a profile where it rounds and starts to flatten off. So that's where about that line should live then. I should go right about to there. Then it has an angle about there. And then it comes straight across. Oh, I didn't go straight across though. So let me start over. I didn't double tap. So I'm going to double tap the Alt key. Let's say right about there. Double tap that Alt key. And then it's going to live right about in there. And I'd say it does a little bit of this and then a little bit of that. Right? And then there is the profile of the window. Right? And then now I want to look at this and see, do I have that profile? I think we're pretty good. Let me turn on now that portion there. Okay, so now looking at this, there needs to be, I'm looking at this view, right? There's definitely obviously some framing happening here. There's some unique framing, very unique, right? So this needs to come from the front. I got to make sure that the cut line's actually coming all the way down to here, right? All the way down to here, actually. Right? So I don't quite have where this needs to be, right? So yeah, this is not coming down far enough at all. And this isn't getting big enough. So see this gap right in here? That's off too. Okay, so you can use slicing this way, right? But something else that could be helpful for you so you can easily visualize and change things, I'm going to go a different route. And I can already see this is not long enough. I can already tell you. See, I told you. This is not long enough. This needs to be coming way out more. way out more. So let's actually adjust that, because this is way off. This isn't even close. So because I'm looking at that relationship right now, I'm going to adjust this right now. So I'm going to go less polygons, and then this needs to be way out more, like right into here world. Okay, and then in fact, I'm going to also make this be more like that. And then now let me just insert an edge loop there. So I'm going to go, whoops. Closer, I'm going to put one there. Oops. And I'm going to put another one right there. So then when this smooths out, I can use these to add a little bit of that roundness profile that I want. Yeah, it almost looks like that one right there. It's got a pretty, like the way the light's hitting there, it's almost not perfectly round. It's almost like this edge right here is completely creased, right? So that the light hits that differently. And then I'd say it needs to be slid way up more like that. And then this can be slid way up more like that, way up here. And then I'm going to crease this one too, actually. Give me more of that. And then I need another edge loop again right here. Okay, something more like that. That's better. Okay. So that's important to me. So back to this. Now what I can do is go, okay, in fact, looking at this line that I just made here, that's about where the window is actually going to line up. So that's actually a beneficial thing. I'm going to switch to masking this time. I'm going to do mask curve, okay? And I want to mask out this instead. So I'm going to say goes right about there, okay? And then it goes a little bit into this rounded portion. So then I'm going to mask out this. I'm going to hold the Alt key so I unmask. Right? And then it definitely comes across here. And I'm going to unmask that. Oops. Might help if I use the masking brush. Okay. And I'm going to turn this off so I just start looking at this. Okay. Now I definitely need something to come through here. Right? So this line right in here. And so now I'm looking at about this gap. I need to put a little bit of gap in here from this thing to that. So I'm going to say, let's go across like this. Get that angle where I want it. It needs to have a little bit more volume, like, whoops, I forgot to hold the Alt key. Something like that, right? And then now I need this. So I'm going to now switch to rectangle. And I'm going to say it does something right about there. Oh, that's a little too much, I think. I'm looking at this right now, this volume. Okay, I need that to be a little bit bigger. Something around there. Okay. And then now let me go back to the masking curve. And I'm going to just refine this angle. I forgot. Hold on. I did not double tap. Right about in there, and then unmask. All right? And this is what I want to start figuring out right now. And this is helping me figure out the actual size of this cockpit, if it's right or if it's not right. Right? So this is my process to start looking at this, to start getting this down. Right? And it's tough. I would say, you know what? I would say even the cockpit does need to be, I think it's a little too wide too. I think it needs to be living more in that realm. I think that's better. right? And see, now we're starting to get that gap back in there again too. Okay, so you could go like this, or you could just do straight up, just make your life easier, right? And just straight up just mask, right, with masking pen, and then just draw out where you think that is, and then refine it. So right about there, to right about there, and it comes across about there, right? And it comes across there, right? And if I turn on lazy mouse, I can do this kind of a thing, right? So that made that line, right? Or instead of doing that, backtrack, and I can actually do stuff like this, right? And I'm going to say also, let's snap it to the track, right? So technically, you guys can also do stuff like this, right? And then that's perfectly straight. And then this angle needs to go from there. And I'm even using those green lines to help me. From there. And then it goes from there. Say that's enough. To there. And then now I go, this needs to come down. And it needs to go way down here, I would say. And then now that line gets drawn. And then now we have a little bit of a lip right here. So just a little one. A little bit of a lip there. And then now this goes to here. Right? So you can go that route. See there, that's starting to get closer and closer to where I need it to be. Okay? Well, John, there's a reason why Snap to Track's not on by default, because it depends on what you're using, right? Because that feature can be used with multiple brushes, right? So there's times where you're not going to want it Snap to Track. There's been scenarios where I don't want that. Especially I can use it to do like chamfering with planar brushes and stuff like that, or trim dynamics, right? So this I like to do because I can start now just seeing, okay, this top part's off a little bit. Right, and I think this is maybe this needs to be a little bit more open. Just a little bit, right? This is just all to help me, right? And then now that goes to there. Then that's masked across. And then this should be masked across to there, right? And then now it's just filling it in. Right, now I just fill it in. Right, that'll help me visually also then see everything. So this, I say, I do a lot. And again, I'm in conversation with you all. So it normally goes a lot faster than what we're doing right now. But it helps me visually see the actual cockpit. And guess what? I'm going to use this piece to actually make the windows. So it's all, I'm making the windows at the same time as using the windows as a guide to make sure I'm getting the right cockpit size, right? I think I need to go still a little bit bigger because I'm not getting a good relationship here. I don't like that relationship. This is not big enough section right here. So I think I need more volume there too. So I think this piece still needs to come up just a little bit more. Oops, I got some kind of masking on. Okay. Just, I don't have enough volume there. Yeah, that's better. And I still think I need more this way still too. Still think I need more like there. Yeah. There you go. And then now this is going to need to come way out here more. There, that's better. Okay. So there you go. This process is now just me doing this. But I think These things that I'm highlighting to you are very important, okay, to start figuring out how to all these relationships are working in hard surface, right? And, you know, I could have started doing some of this stuff way earlier, okay, as we were moving along, okay, but I didn't. But now we're starting to see I'm starting to clean up. So this is all stage 2 for me, is about getting these clean pieces, making these clean pieces work right together, right? Making sure everything is correct, right? This needs to come off a little bit more. Right? Yeah, they need to come this way more, like that. Right? So see, now those relationships are starting to work now. And that's what's important to me. This is why, again, I have a stage 3. Stage 2 is now just getting these pieces, getting them to work right, look right, getting them clean, and making sure I have all my proportions right. I don't worry about, oh, I need to make it look cool, have all these hinges, these scribe lines. No, forget all that. It's just making sure all this is working together and coming together nicely. Is the ZBrush sculpt off? It's for anybody. Anybody, any one of you that want to compete, do it. You can be a student. You can use ZBrush. You can use ZBrush Core. You can use ZBrush Core Mini. It's open to anybody. It's an open competition again this year. So we obviously have announced the summit. You guys have been seeing in the chat and on mine. So the summit is going to be October 23rd through the 26th. The sculpt off is going to be the 23rd. You must stream to be eligible for prizes. And last year we gave away, I want to say around $20,000 worth of items to 1st through 5th. It could have even been more than that. Maybe it was more like 25,000. So we're going to be doing that again this year. We're going to be getting some sponsors involved. We already have some that are already back on board with us. So definitely, if I were you, if you enjoy that, get on there. And I would also start practicing streaming, right? Because you're going to have to stream those 3 hours. That's part of the rules. We need to be able to see that you did the piece in those 3 hours, number one. And number two, we're bouncing around to you all, right? And trying to pull up as many as we can during our actual stream. So Sam, no, we actually give a theme, and then you have to just sculpt anything you want from that theme. That's it. But you can sculpt anything based upon the theme that we give you. Okay, and if you go to here, let me get the page. So I know it's been coming through, but let me just grab it anyways. So here is the page where you want to go. Call for artists. This is the summit page. And then obviously we're going to keep putting stuff on this page for announcements. John, just do it. Even if you don't win, it's a great challenge to do, and you'll learn a lot. You'll learn about yourself as an artist, a lot of yourself of what you can do in ZBrush, and it'll push your ZBrush for sure. And you bring the 80s, absolutely, absolutely. Oh, I wish I could just play 80s music and a whole bunch of music during that, but. Okay, so there you go. There's where you go, and you can, all you do is just register. Okay, if you don't have a Twitch or YouTube channel, you got to make one of those first, because you got to stream either on Twitch or YouTube. But there is a ton of information here for you guys, right? So besides that, don't forget we put together a whole stream setup for you. So you click this link right here, right? We literally did what you need to do to set up for streaming, like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 thing. Okay? That's it. 6 is just start streaming. Okay? So this will help you understand how to stream if you've never streamed before. Okay? And then all the rules are also on this page. Okay, so you have a link here to the rules, contest rules. Right, so you might want to read through those as well. Right now, we have not announced the theme yet, though, or what the winnings will be. Okay? But I say go for it. Like, it'd be awesome to challenge. Okay. Daisuke, you're doing a look up here. All right. So I know this has been a slow process because I just talk too much. Like I got like 3 things done. But we'll continue. I'll continue working on this. And then we'll continue looking at cleaning this up and refining this. And then eventually we'll get into stage 3 where we're putting in the cool details. And then no, you cannot use anything but ZBrush. You have to use ZBrush. It's a ZBrush competition. So you have to use ZBrush. So that's why you're allowed to use ZBrush Core Mini, because that's free. And then don't forget, we have subscriptions of ZBrush. You don't have a license. You could literally get a subscription just for that contest. And you have chances of winning, like I said, thousands of dollars worth of prizes. And our subscription is $39.95 per month. Or you can do $179.95 for 6 months for ZBrush. And then ZBrush Core is $179 for lifetime license, perpetual license. And then it's $9.95 per month. Not necessarily, Rodolfo. Not necessarily. She came in second last year, but listen, you never know. There were some really great artists last year that actually came in like 3rd and 4th, and they weren't like the known names that you guys are used to watching on this stream. You never know. You never know what the judges will like. And then, yes, Blood, Guts, and Glory. God, you guys have such good names. Yes, this is immediately going to be live on our YouTube channel. And it should be there on our Twitch, actually, too. Okay? All right, so please, take a time. Come in and join us for that sculpt off. It's a ton of fun. Trust me, that's how I learn. Even when I do projects, if I give myself a limited time to do the project, I learn so much that way, too. All right, so thank you for watching. I will continue this model along these streams. We'll keep going at this dropship, and just darn it, I love aliens, so I'm not going to say no. That's for sure. And I can already see that my cockpit was way off because this piece right here is off. See, I don't have this line, so I can see I need to now go make this piece. Actually, it's the most important piece to go make right now is that piece, because that'll help me determine the cockpit length. All right, so this has just been another exciting, wonderful episode of me doing just randomness here, right? So thank you all for joining. I really appreciate it. I can see now it's too thin again. Come back again and watch us. This channel's live every day. We've had also Daisuke with us from the team. So I appreciate everybody taking the time out of their day to come and watch me build a little dropship from aliens. I'm going to keep moving along with this, so hopefully we can get this done, and it'd be really cool to see this done. I'm just a big fan, and then I'm going to 3D print that out as well. Put it up in the corner here in my office. Okay? So I appreciate you all taking the time. It really means a lot to me. Again, this is Paul Gaboury with Pixologic. You've been watching a stream of how to do hard surface sci-fi ship within ZBrush, i.e. the dropship of aliens, one of my all-time favorites. All right, sign up for that sculpt off. Have a wonderful day. I'm out.